Please join me in welcoming to the stage our panelists for a lively discussion about creating the future we want. Please welcome on stage the moderator Annabelle Laurent, journalist at Uzbek and Rica. You can all applaud them. Karla Rubilar, Intendenta of Santiago de Chile. Sandra, founder and CEO of Glowee, and Lili Dreyer, member of the London Women for Climate mentorship programs. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Annabelle Laurent. I'm a journalist for Uzbek Rica, which is a magazine dedicated about the future. So I'm very excited about today's theme. If we want to create the future we want, we need that cities and entrepreneurs work hand in hand. So that's why I'm very happy to introduce our three speakers. Karla Rubilar, you were elected Intendenta de Santiago de Chile in March 2018, and you're doing a lot for your environment in your city. Lili Dreyer, you're an entrepreneur in sustainable textile and a 2018 London Mentee. And Sandra, you're the founder of and CEO of Glowee, that imagined the future where we would use microorganisms to produce natural light. So first question for Karla Rubilar, who will speak in Spanish, so you can have your, if you need a translation. What does Santiago de Chile of the future look like, and how do you intend to get there?
Muy buenas tardes. Estamos muy contentos y agradecidos de esta invitación, de ver tantas mujeres empoderadas. Y lo cierto es que para el 2040,
empowered, powerful, and between now and 2040, Santiago de Chile will be 500 years old, and in 500 years, we want to become a more pleasant area, a more inclusive area, and a better balanced and fairer place. How to achieve such an outcome? Santiago that uses the train, that rides the subway, that uses cable cars, that is connected with all different types of transportation, bicycles, pedestrian areas, and better bus system and an electric transportation network. We're spearheading new mobility in the world. We're the country that comes right after China in being electrified. We want to continue to innovate and become ever more competitive. We want to become a capital for business, tourism, a greener city, a more sustainable city in a more resilient area, in a position to rise to the challenges of climate change. How can we achieve this? Well, for one thing, with a lot of conviction, by making a genuine political commitment, and by deciding to act, by daring to act, daring to change. Our cities continue to behave in the same way, and we've decided to do things differently, which is why Women for Climate is so important. We want to approach this with a gender perspective. Gender equality will guide us, and gender equality must guide us in any decision that we make. If we make a decision at the metropolitan or regional level, we have to bear this in mind. Transportation for men is not everything that women need.
30 under 30 technology list. So this is a big honor. How did this recognition inspire you to take your ideas and your work to the next level?
What can Forbes bring to a project like mine? To maybe just remind you what it is. We are developing a biological solution of lighting that works with a phenomenon called bioluminescence, which is the ability that have a lot of animals to actually produce light. And when we had this recognition, the best thing was that it gives an international recognition and opportunities. And we really think that to implement this kind of disruptive technologies in a big industry like lighting, we really need all these international strengths and ideas and working together on building these new kind of industries around bioluminescence. So this is what Forbes can bring, is incoming calls from around the world to have new projects, new ideas, and to really not just think about the product, but implement the solution.
And Lili, Lili Dreyer, in terms of creating the future you want, so in the future you want, we will wear biodegradable, upcycled trainers.
Yes.
Tell me if I'm wrong. What should we focus on in the textile industry?
Yes, so I don't know if you know this, guys, but the fashion industry has been named as the second most polluting industry globally. So I think it's quite clear that we need a drastic change. And I think, like in all other industries, we need to move towards a more circular economy. Because I think one of the reasons why the textile industry is so polluting is because it generates so much waste. For instance, in London, 11 million items of used clothing get sent to landfill each week. This means that, in average, every Londoner throws away more than one item of clothing per week. And that's an economic crisis, but it's definitely also an environmental crisis, especially when you think of the fact that, you know, a pair of jeans, not a lot of us are wearing jeans today, but it takes 2,000 gallons of water to make a pair of jeans, and that's the equivalent of the water you use for a 12-hour shower. So that's quite a lot. So I think, yeah, as I said, it's a big crisis, and in order to solve this, we need to move towards a more circular economy and kind of eliminate the concept of waste. In order to do this, we need to fulfill, in my opinion, we need to fulfill the potential of each waste management strategy. So there is reuse, there are quite a lot of options. We have clothing libraries, we have apps where you can sell your old clothing, and there's charity shops. We have recycling, which is kind of getting there, but there are definitely some technical barriers. But then we have upcycling, and I'm not sure if you're really aware of what that is, but that's just below reuse, and that's where we take textile waste and we make something new out of it. Instead of like breaking it down to the fiber level, we're just using the fabric as it is. So for example, I could take like an old t-shirt and I could make it into a new dress, or I would then use it to make sneakers, as you said. So I think upcycling is something that's overlooked in the sustainable fashion agenda. It's not something that's being done a lot, and it's because there are some barriers in terms of it's very labor intensive and it's difficult to make scalable. So I think that's what we're trying to work on with Wear, to make it something that, you know, that can become economically viable, because it's so important, because there are so much textiles that we can't reuse. Like my pair of jeans, if there's a hole in them, it can't, like, you don't want to buy that. And then there's the whole manufacturing waste, so the offcuts, the scrap fabric, the samples that can't be reused either, but we can use it for upcycling. So I think we're trying to kind of solve this, and if we can do this, I hope we can fulfill the potential of upcycling.
Karla Rubilar, Karla, what are you doing to inspire or to empower women like Lili or Sandra in your city, to especially those interested in science and innovation? What do you do to inspire them to?
Well, we have a dearth of women and girls in the fields of science and innovation. We've only had a Ministry of Science for a short time, but we're proud to have it. Better late than never. And we have an Undersecretary of State for Science. We want to change the education system in our country. There are still major stereotypes keeping women out of science and technology. So thanks to the Ministry for Education, and the Ministry for Women's Affairs, we want to change all of this. We want to change the way we teach little girls. Our regional government, and we're working with them, wants to create a regional program to train girls to become leaders, a leadership program for girls. And there's got to be a chapter devoted to the fight against climate change. We want to show how we can fight against climate change, particularly when you're from an impoverished segment of the population, underprivileged neighborhood, because when it comes to climate change, we speak a language that people don't understand. People are not familiar with this language, with this vocabulary. The people who are most affected by climate change don't understand the message that we're trying to share.
Inspire you to get into the startup world, and particularly with this project that will help save energy consumption?
I think that the main source of inspiration is nature itself, because nature is a very efficient industry, factory, like everything, there's no waste in nature, everything is so well thought. And so when you look at the fact that in terms of lighting, for example, we are using a lot of natural resources, we are extremely polluting water, soil with the production of those processes, and we are consuming a lot of electricity to do that, and then we produce a lot of waste that we don't know what to do with it. And in the same time, you have 3.8 billion years of research and development that have been done by nature itself. So, and it found solution. In terms of lighting, there's more than 80% of marine organisms that are able to produce light. That means that it's efficient, it works. So when you realize the fact that there is all the solution happening in nature, and today we are lucky enough to have a lot of technological backgrounds that allow us to just take the inspiration, but also copy what nature is doing the best. You start to think differently, and it's a really amazing source of inspiration that we use at Glowee to create this new biological lighting, which is both biosourced and biodegradable at the end.
Lili, Dreyer, how does your project tie in with circular economy?
I would say like the whole idea behind where my startup is circular economy. It's what it's based on, actually. I think it's because we see, all these textiles, all these scrap fabrics, and old clothing. We don't see it as waste, but we see it as a resource. So it's kind of the whole idea, but more like practically, I think it's like in two ways. First of all, we use textile waste as an input material for our shoes, so we're trying to use textile waste as the upper part of the shoe, and thereby minimizing the use of new resources. And at the same time, we're trying to fight the global textile waste problem by giving these textiles a second life. And then secondly, we're also trying to make sure that our product, our shoe, like when you can't wear it anymore, if it gets too small or something, that it doesn't just end up being another landfill problem, that we can actually make sure it gets recycled. And excuse me for getting a little bit nerdy, but there are different ways that you can do this, and we're trying to use different eco-design principles, such as designing for monomateriality and designing for disassembly, which all contributes to making it as recyclable as possible in the other end. And I think one thing is sustainability, and one thing is economically viability, and if we can combine these and make a model on how to do this, I think we can. The hope is to break in some doors for other companies as well, so it's not just me doing this. I want to be more than that, so other companies can do it and consumers can do it as well. So share the knowledge, share the infrastructure for textile waste, and share a business model. That's the goal.
Great. Karla, Rubilar, how can we take everything we talk about today and make sure we keep the momentum going outside this room, this city, and the city around the world, your city and the city around the world?
Este panel se llama Creando el futuro que queremos.
This panel discussion is called Creating the Future We Want. Well, it goes without saying that this is the question. What must we do, and what's the biggest change that's required? And that's a question that I've had to answer. What should cities do? What should cities change? My message would be that the most important resource is people, not electromobility, not necessarily the way we recycle our waste. No, that's secondary. It all depends on the work we do with people. If people change, then we'll make progress when it comes to electromobility. If people change, and we can make progress when it comes to waste sorting, sustainable energy, more harmonious relation with nature. It's all a matter of changing behaviors. And when I hear people say that we need to ask people to recycle their waste, the future we hope for, the future we want, is not a disposable future. We want a circular economy everywhere in human relations, a circular economy in relation to the environment, to animals, to people, and only then can we protect the environment effectively. And my message is this. All right, I speak Spanish. I understand a little bit of English, but I'm taking the stage in Spanish because I want to be very clear. The message is that we cannot be held back by any language barrier. In Latin America, we speak Spanish, and Latin America is where we need to act to fight against climate change. We've got to reach a Spanish-speaking audience. So let's not allow the language barrier to keep us back, to hold us back, and keep us from broadcasting the message to the people we want to reach out to.
Gracias.
It all starts there.
Sandra, this discussion is about creating a brighter future for all. Where do you see yourself and your career in 10 years' time? What will you do to contribute to a more sustainable planet?
Well, I guess that I really believe in the fact that to have a more sustainable planet, we need to find the best source of energy for the best place. There's not one answer for everything, and this is something that we tend to do in our societies, just trying to find the magical solution to all of problems, but it's not happening. And all kind of places, all kind of contexts needs its kind of energy. The one we are developing is one solution, but bioinstance will not solve all the problem in the world around lighting. So I guess in 10 years, what I would like to be still doing is to just find solution to enter the one contest, one precise contest, because I think this is the way we're going to have a real impact. And if it's bioluminescence, that will mean that bioluminescence will already be everywhere, which will be a great news. But if it's another source of energy inspired by nature, that will also be something that I will love to do.
So keep getting inspired by nature and extending your solution to cities.
Biotechnology and bioeconomy and biomimicry is just the really beginning of something that we start to realize. And we now really have all the technologies to copy what nature is doing. So let's just look at what works instead of looking solution that we can invent. There's a lot of things that works already, so let's just take that things and do something great with it.
And what do you expect from Myers to help you developing this project? What can they do?
I think the cities have a great role to play. First, because they have this global vision. They know what do they need, but also what do citizens need. And working all together is important. I cannot say that it's really easy for a startup to work with cities directly. But we see a lot of cities today that contact us to just, because they want to find solution and they just don't want to find incremental solutions. It's not a matter, in our case, of replacing a bulb. It's a matter of, okay, what do the citizens need in terms of lighting in their life? How can we have more wellness in our cities thanks to lighting? How can we be more responsible in terms of lighting? So it's really global situation that we see now, and this is very encouraging for the rest of the life.
Lili, last question for you. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You have 50 seconds.
50 seconds, okay. In 5 years. In 5 years, I hope to be somewhere where I can make the biggest difference for the planet. I think that's the goal, and that, as you say, like that can be in a lot of different areas. That's just not in, doesn't have to be in fashion. But I think fashion might be a good place to start because, as I said before, it's one of the most polluting industries globally, and I would love to work with upcycling and getting it out because, as you said as well, it's about people. Like people are first, so it's about enabling consumers themselves to do this, and companies and entrepreneurs like you to make this change and make, have these business models so they can enable these technologies to be more widespread. So, and I think the Women for Climate program and the whole movement has definitely enabled me much more. It's like pushed me further on the path of this future that I want to create within sustainability.
Great, good job, you did it. Thank you to our 3 speakers.
Oops.